Hello, hello. Hey, everybody. Our guest today is calling in from the other side of the world. We're all staying at home, enjoying this quarantine, COVID-19 coronavirus. He's calling in from Bombay, India. He's actually one of the co-founders, one of the two co-founders of one of the world's newest unicorns. So a tech startup valued at over $1 billion, based in India. He's got a pretty cool story behind that. And we've got some similar roots as well. So before we get into it, give it up for my friend, Bhavit Sheth. My name is Brian Shinborn. I'm an explorer of people, places, and culture. In my travels, spanning over 20 countries across 4 continents, I've had the pleasure of engaging in authentic conversations with amazingly interesting people. These are their stories, on location and unfiltered. Presented by 8B Media, this is Half the City. What's up, man? How you doing? I see you holding up over there.
Good. Thanks, Brian, for that intro. Yeah, it's a tough time. It's a weird time, but holding up well.
It's crazy, right? I mean, I
Yeah.
I feel like I remember in the beginning of the year when it started coming from China, and just, okay, who knows what it's going to be, but we knew it was going to start spreading. But it feels
Yeah.
like it didn't really hit, at least in America, until about a month ago. Like that's when it really started taking off, and it went from like life as usual to like every day is an eternity, man. Like it feels like we've been in lockdown for like a year.
Right.
How's it going over there, man? What's going on in India with it?
Yes, it is. It has affected a lot. But I was actually supposed to be in Shenzhen in January,
Oh, really?
and yeah,
Wow.
all bookings done, everything. And then my brother, being a doctor,
Mm-hmm.
obviously had some early information
Mm-hmm.
on the entire coronavirus situation and
Mm-hmm.
something that was developing in China. So he told me that it's best not to go there. It's best to avoid going to China.
So you were able to
Uh,
avoid it before they shut the country down then?
yes,
Wow,
and
dude.
and the best part about it is the person I was supposed to meet in China. I told him that, listen, there's this situation which is developing, and it's
Mm-hmm.
best to avoid doing this meeting now. And the person was like, yeah, by that logic, I should never be coming to India.
Hey, you just don't know
Right,
India.
but
That's
obviously he didn't. Well, obviously at that time he didn't know that it's this bad. He was
yeah,
like, well, there's a 0.01% chance that something may happen,
right.
which
But that's
became into 100% chance very soon.
well, I mean, that's it's debatable, right? I mean, I don't want to get into the politics of it because I don't want China to get
Right.
mad at me because I love that
Yeah.
country. But I
Yeah.
can tell you those numbers are probably debatable at best. They have a
Yes.
tendency of capping things off at a certain level. But
Right.
yeah, dude, it's crazy that you were able to change that before, man. Like I mean, you could have been high risk, man.
Yes.
Like
Of
that's crazy,
course.
dude. So
Probably I could have been the person who started the entire coronavirus spread in India.
you could have been patient
Luckily,
number. You could
luckily,
be patient zero in India.
yeah.
Oh my god, that's
But
crazy,
yeah,
dude.
that didn't happen. Luckily, my brother told me, so I just canceled
Hmm.
that trip.
Oh yeah.
And but currently, India is in a complete lockdown. The state that I am in actually has the maximum number of cases.
Oh
Um,
really?
yeah,
Oh, that's
and
crazy.
but the government is doing a great job as trying to contain COVID right now. In fact, if they find a positive case anywhere, they'll immediately make that a containment zone,
Hmm.
and the entire 1 kilometer stretch around it would be sanitized, and no one is allowed to get out from there.
Wow, that's
Uh,
crazy.
Yes, they just make sure that the essentials are available to the people in the containment zone. So they've gone real hard on the lockdown.
Hmm.
Obviously, the thought process for them is that human lives is more important. Economy can be revived,
Hmm.
but obviously, economy has taken a big hit, and we won't know the full impact of that till a few months.
Yeah, it's gonna be a while for sure, but it's.
Yeah.
I mean, I think about like Like I went to India. I actually visited you in India
Right,
for a while,
right,
a couple of years ago. I sit there and I think like how like if India were trying to take the same measures that America was taking, India would be done for.
yeah.
Just because there's so many people everywhere, right? There's just, I mean, everywhere you go, there's people on the streets and just living life
Yeah,
or
the
selling products
population
or whatever.
density is very high.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so if this was to spread very fast, containment would be very difficult.
Yeah, I'd say that's probably why we're seeing things with like in the US, like New York State
Right,
has more cases than any other country in the world right now,
right, right,
right? Because Manhattan's so densely populated, right?
right,
Manhattan's, Queens,
right,
Brooklyn, that the five
yeah,
boroughs. They're
right,
getting devastated over there. Meanwhile, over in California, where I'm at, our governor instituted a lockdown, a stay-at-home order lockdown
right,
for everyone except for non-essential people. Your food workers, restaurants, delivery, transportation kind of stuff. And people have been kind of adhering to it, so we're not seeing nearly as much of a spike over here as we are in New York.
right,
Who knows? I mean, that could change. It could change. It's early, but I think the big thing right now is that everybody's staying at home, staying in place,
right,
just riding it
right,
out as much as it sucks. I mean,
yes.
it's driving me crazy, dude. It's driving me crazy. I think like today I had a God, I'm like I feel like I'm on vacation, like I'm eating nothing but junk food, and I'm just sitting on my ass for like hours.
Yeah,
I'm working,
yeah,
but I'm sitting on my ass for hours,
yeah,
dude. I'm like,
yeah, yeah,
I'm gonna come out of this thing like 50 pounds
yeah,
heavier or something. It's-
right. And I know we'll talk about this later as well, but there's no sports going on anywhere. So
nope.
even when you're sitting at home, you don't know what to watch except for
Right.
movies on Netflix.
Right. Right. Have you seen the Tiger King?
No, I'm not.
Oh, dude, it's crazy. It's crazy. I don't know if it's available on Netflix in India yet, but like, it's this documentary about like basically like stupid white people shit, like white trash redneck people. These three different people that all own competing tiger zoos
Wow.
in America. But like that's just where it starts, and it gets so much crazier, dude. Like, shout out to Netflix and Tiger King. You check that shit out, dude. It's good.
I will.
Yeah,
I
it's like a
will.
5-part series or something. Speaking of sports, though, obviously sports are shut down everywhere. All the major sports here are postponed indefinitely: baseball, football, basketball, hockey,
Right.
soccer. All that stuff. And I know that based on what you do, it affects you quite a bit as well. So maybe you could first talk about what you and your company does, Dream 11, and then talk about kind of how it's being affected by this whole thing.
Sure. So, Dream 11 is a daily fantasy sports company.
Mhm.
Fantasy sports is basically a concept where you can get to be a selector.
Mhm.
You can choose your own team from a specific match for which you're playing for, and the players that you believe would perform the best on that day would make it to your team,
Mhm.
and the way they perform in the real life match would give you points in your fantasy team,
Mhm.
and at the end of the day, whichever team has the most points with the cumulative of all the players is at the top of the leaderboard and wins. So,
Nice.
so yeah, that's a very quick brief of fantasy sports.
So that would be something
And
like fantasy football or fantasy baseball, where like fantasy
right,
football is the big one in America, where people get together,
yeah,
they draft their teams, they see
right,
how well the individual players do.
right. Only difference is that we do it per match. So obviously the biggest one for us is cricket. We got
Hmm.
1 billion cricket fans in India. But apart
Yeah.
from cricket, we do multiple sports like football, which you all call soccer,
Yeah.
and then there's basketball. We do hockey, field hockey,
Mhm.
volleyball. So there are a bunch of sports that we do, but cricket being the biggest of them.
I would say cricket's huge in India. It's huge in a lot of. I think
Yeah.
cricket's basically big in like all of the old UK countries, right? I think America might have left a little too soon in our own sport and said, "Screw cricket, we're playing baseball." Something like that. I don't know. I to be honest, like I've been to the Oval in Melbourne where they play their cricket matches. Not during a game. I was just there before a game. and I don't really know anything about cricket. All I know is like when we were in grad school. So we went to grad school together, listeners. That's how I know Bhavit. But I remember when we put together an extracurricular softball team, right?
Yes.
And I remember, like, I played baseball growing up, the whole glove, bat, and all that thing. With the softballs a certain size, and I think Bobbitt's in the outfield. Whoever was at bat hit the ball and it like flew to the outfield. And I remember him trying to catch it with his bare hands, and I'm like, Bobbitt, what are you doing? Why are you catching with your bare hands, dude? Like, use the glove. So I know there's some similar stuff there, but like, what's just high level? Like, can you tell the American audience as well as just kind of reiterate with people that are familiar with it, high level, what's going on with cricket?
Yep. So cricket, first of all, there is only two hitters and one pitcher instead of four hitters that you can have on four bases in baseball. And after every six pitches, the pitcher changes. So that's a very high level of how the structure is. But the pitcher has to obviously throw to the batsman. So batsman is what we call the hitter in cricket, and the pitcher is called a bowler. So the bowler has to throw the ball towards the batsman, and it's not exactly similar to baseball, but the ball actually has to hit the pitch before it reaches the batsman. That's where you get maximum. The bowler could get maximum. I would say purchase out of the pitch that is being played on in cricket. And once the batsman hits the ball, he doesn't need to necessarily run. It's not compulsory to run. He can decide whether he wants to run or not. And there are three different formats of the game. The longest format is a 5-day format. So
Jeez.
It runs across 5 days, 8 hours a day.
People go to those? Like they sit there for 8 hours a day for 5 days, like fans?
Earlier, they used to do it a lot. Now, with the newer formats coming in, the viewership is dropped drastically. Almost a game for the purists now.
Got it.
And then we have one where there are 300 pitches per team. That is a single day game, and that lasts for 8 hours again. And then there's a shorter format, which is a 3.5 hour format, where there are only 120 pitches
per
instead
side.
of 300. Yes, per side. Now there are different variations that have been coming in. There are 60 pitches, there are 100 pitches, but the three major formats is the 3.5 hour format, the 8 hour format, and the 5-day format.
It's interesting to me how the length of the game is decided based on number of pitches versus like in baseball, like number of outs, number of innings, right?
So it's a combination. Obviously, we have a number of outs as well. Every team gets 10 outs. After 10 outs, you're done. Whatever you score is the target for the other team to chase down. And but the number of pitches is the outer limit. So once you hit those many number of pitches and you don't get everyone out, the target is set for the other team after those many number of pitches. And on average, if you the scoring is very different from baseball, right? In baseball, if you get a few runs, up to 10 runs, it would be great.
That's a high score, yeah.
That's a high scoring. Yeah. And in cricket, in a 300 pitch game for a single side, the average score would be somewhere around 275 to 325.
Are you kidding?
Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah. That's crazy.
Right. So the equivalent of a home run in baseball is 6 runs in cricket. But in baseball, you actually have to have all the 4 bases loaded when you hit the home run to get 4 runs, right?
Right.
In cricket, as soon as you hit a home run, it's a direct 6 runs.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because in baseball, it's like you got to go all the way around. You got to touch all 4 bases to score.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
You do fantasy sports with Dream 11. Right. You mentioned you touch on all of these different sports, but I think you started with the cricket stuff. Is that right?
Yes.
So can you kind of maybe go through like what it was like to start this. I mean, I think from my understanding, you and your partner were kind of working remotely as well, right? So,
Yeah, let
mhm.
me take you quickly through the journey.
Sure.
Um Dream 11 is 12 years old now. We started in 2008.
Hmm.
Um, Actually, we started working on it in 2007. We launched it in 2008. Uh, Me and my co-founder Harsh, both of us have been playing fantasy football for over 20 years now.
Hmm.
2001 is when we started playing fantasy sports, and that was for soccer, the English Premier League. So after we got done with schooling, Harsh went to UK to do his high school, and that's where he got introduced to fantasy sports for the English Premier League, because obviously it's the most popular sport in UK where
Right.
he was studying, and he introduced us to fantasy EPL as well. And it was a good way to for all of us to stay in touch, right? After
Hmm.
school, a bunch of us were studying in India. Some of our friends had gone to UK or US
Hmm.
to study,
Hmm.
and this was a thread that tied us all together. So every
Nice.
weekend we would have banter. We would There would be a conversation topic about who's played well, who's not. It it I would say increased our engagement in the game drastically.
Oh yeah, for
So
sure. Hmm.
yeah, I think before I've been following football for around 5 years before I started playing fantasy sports. And after I started playing fantasy football, I used to almost watch a game every weekend, if not more. So we like playing it, and we continue playing with it, playing on the fantasy EPL platform. And in 2008 was when there was a change happening in the cricket world as well. That's when the entire one day 8 hour format was being transitioned to a newer format, which was a 3.5 hour format. So
Hmm.
that was the newer format that was coming in, and there was a lot of excitement around it, a lot of buzz. You know, it was more of a entertainment platform which was being created. So we wanted to play fantasy cricket for that tournament as well, which started in 2008, called the Indian Premier League, and
Hmm.
today is one of the most popular cricket tournaments in the calendar year. Usually played in April, May, got cancelled this year, which I'll talk
Yeah.
about later. And we wanted to play, and we couldn't find anything to play for fantasy cricket. So it was one of those typical bar conversations, right? Where we were like, there's nothing out there. We should create one. It's such a good opportunity, and we all excited about that. And then we just went home and slept over. And
That's it.
but yeah, and then there's so many of these ideas that you get when you just talking with friends over a drink,
Absolutely. Hmm. I've had a
and
bajillion ideas, man, and I don't remember like probably 90% of them.
right, right. And then after a few days, my co-founder Harsh, he called me and he's like, I've been thinking, and this is something, it's really stuck in my head. Why don't we just go ahead and try it out? And I was like, sure. Both of us are passionate about sports. Both of us have been playing fantasy sports for a while. We know that fantasy sports is super engagement. It's something that a fan should be playing. In US at that time, almost half of the sports fans were playing fantasy sports. So there definitely seemed to be an opportunity there. And we did a little bit of research, at least in US, and in other countries. There seemed to be a lot of traction around fantasy sports.
Oh, absolutely,
uh,
man. I even
yeah,
think like, I mean, you've been playing fantasy sports since 2001. I've been playing
right,
since probably at least that long, like maybe 98, 99. Around the time when it was
right,
just kind of getting going online.
right,
It takes you from a casual fan, like, oh, you love your team, you're gonna watch just your
yeah,
just the Patriots or something like that on Sunday, and then that you're good,
right,
to suddenly,
yeah,
oh shit, no, you got to watch every single game because your players are all over the place, and you got to,
right,
if you don't keep tabs on the players, if you don't watch the games or at least the highlights or whatever, you don't have you don't have an idea of how well they actually did. And so then you can't, you're going to lose that edge against your buddies, right? So if
Right.
the
Right.
last thing you want to do is lose the league, right?
Yeah.
Because then, 'cause then you're going to
That's
get it
true.
from everybody until the next year.
So we actually started off with the same format that at that time fantasy English Premier League
Mhm.
or in US Yahoo, ESPN, CBS, Fox. All of them had this entire season-long format where
Mhm.
you create your team at the start of the season. You pick players from all different teams that are playing in that league, and then you can do trades every week. And at the end of the season, you know whether you won or not basis your rank on the leaderboard. So we decided to do that format at that time. And as part of our research, we went around talking to a bunch of people who would I would say the gaming gurus in India, and all of them told us that it's a terrible idea. And and
Why did they say that?
as in they were like it's not monetizable. There's no education around fantasy sports in the market. You'll have to actually tell people what it is. People don't understand strategy games, so all kind of things. And in hindsight they were actually right, because the format that we were trying to do, the season long game, we are trying to monetize via ads. For ad revenue, you actually need to have a lot of users on your platform.
Mhm.
Otherwise, your ad revenue doesn't come in.
Let me ask you this. Just for some perspective, you said you launched in 2008. Like for me, like my frame of reference, 2008 is like 2008 internet, 2008 in America, right? Internet,
Yeah.
sports, all that stuff. Where people are in America with that stuff. Like roughly, where was India at as far as whether it's internet speeds, infrastructures, maybe like where's the sports scene at? Like where was India at in 2008?
So in 2008, iPhone was just being launched.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, in India, I think even in US, that was the year when iPhone was being launched. So BlackBerry, that was popular at that time. And in India, apart from BlackBerry, Nokia was very popular. But they were not smartphones, right? So in 2008, if you had to play fantasy sports or anything else, it would either be on your computer, or then if you're playing games on your console, like a PlayStation or
Mm-hmm.
Xbox or Nintendo. And internet speeds were so we at that time 3G was just about picking up in India.
Mm-hmm.
uh, but then again, 3G is mobile internet, so people could usually play this only on their laptops or computers.
Mm-hmm.
And we had decent broadband speed, not the kind of speed we have today, but the broadband speed was decent enough to support gaming, fantasy sports, all those kind of platforms at that time. In fact, Facebook had I would not say not launched, but it was Facebook was very very new in India at that time. The most popular social media platform, I don't know if you heard it or not, was Orkut.
Orkut?
Yes,
I think
it
I
was
heard of that. I think I heard of that. I think it was
right. So
popular in like Brazil or something. Orkut?
I don't know, but eventually Google bought it down,
Mm.
and as it does with most of the products they buy, they shut it down after some
Yep.
time.
Good old
Uh,
Aquahire.
yeah. So at that time, Orkut was more popular than Facebook. So we were in a very different world back then.
Yeah, well, so I sit there and I think about it. And I go, okay,
Yeah.
today, like fantasy sports is, I mean, yes, it's great to do on your computer, but it's
Right.
really easy just to do it on your phone, right? So,
Right.
so when you're talking starting this company with this ad revenue model,
Right.
and you're restricted first because you've got to get traction, you got to get scale, right?
Right.
But also you're limited on the time and places people can get on this,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
So I guess yeah, so you could say those sports commentators or whoever the sports experts you talked about said it was a terrible idea, or you're just like light years ahead of them.
Right.
You know,
No, for us, it was listen, this seems to be a great idea. This is something that we are passionate about.
Mhm.
Let's just try it out. We were young at that time. We were 23, I think. Like, if this works out, great. If it doesn't, we have enough time ahead of us to do something else.
Mm-hmm.
Platforms of any kind of scale at that time to make good ad revenue. So the first 3 years we actually learned what not to do.
Hmm.
We actually figured out a lot of things that we are doing wrong. In that interim was when I actually came to Bentley,
Mm-hmm.
because one of the things that me and my co-founder both figured out is that being engineers, we didn't have as much business acumen as we should.
Mm.
So we were like, it may be a good idea to go to B school to learn something about business as well.
Got it.
And so we took turns. I went to Bentley first, and after I came back a year later, my co-founder went to Columbia. Yeah, that's how we split it up, and both of us got a B school degree and some more knowledge on how to run a business. Obviously, practical experience helped us, and then some of the B school experience also helped us with just understanding of how to run a business.
So
So
what are some like early like I mean, aside from these guys telling you it was a bad idea, like what were some of the major like hurdles that you came across? And then like well, that's the first question. Then after that, like what is like the big like when you got that first big win and you're like, yes, this is working.
right. So I think in the first year itself, we ran through 70% of the money that we had raised through friends and family.
Oh shit.
And and obviously that was one of the biggest hurdles, because you're like, okay, if we don't have money, how are we going to run the business? Uh, and we, in that first 1.5 years, we realized that okay, this is not the right model to go with. We need to pivot, and but even to pivot, it would take us some time because we needed to figure out what model works, then build it out, have a team that builds it out. For all that, you need money.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine burning to 70% of the funds in the first year, and we didn't want to go back to family to ask for more money.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so, so what we decided at that time was that we'll start a servicing business, a digital servicing business, which would basically do a bunch of web development for other companies, managing social media pages, running digital ads, creating games, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And services business inherently obviously has to be profitable, because you would obviously put a markup on every project that you do.
Of course.
And in the servicing business, we actually lucky in the sense that our first client was actually, because of our sports connection, was a sports team, cricket team from IPL, called Mumbai Indians. And they said that okay, you guys are the digital guys in that sense. You all have been doing digital for a while. We have zero idea on digital. Why don't you help us build a Facebook page? And
Mm-hmm.
that's the time Facebook has started to gain popularity.
Oh wow.
So we were like, sure, we'll build it out. We'll maintain your Facebook page. We'll run ads if you want. And 2008, 9, I think 2010 is when we started this off. That was a time when I don't know whether it was the same case out there, but in here, the vanity metric was likes, how many likes you have on your Facebook page. So for Mumbai Indians, we are obviously very early in the Facebook curve. So when we launched their brand page, we were able to get 1 million likes within 6 months for them.
Nice.
So they were very happy with the way we were managing content, with the way we were managing engagement on their side.
Mm-hmm.
And Adidas, who was a sponsor of Mumbai Indians, they saw this and they approached us saying that, listen, you've been doing a great job for Mumbai Indians, so why don't you work with us as well? And we were like, sure, why not? And so
Like
that's how we got
no big deal. I mean, just for some perspective, the Mumbai Indians are what? They're like, I mean, they could be, to translate that to American sports, like the what? Like the Yankees?
the Yeah, so they are right now, as of today, one of the most successful teams in IPL.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Mumbai Indians and Chennai Super Kings, two teams, they have won the IPL the most number of times.
Mm-hmm. So you're building web pages, you're building Facebook pages for the Yankees of India Premier League cricket,
Right, right.
and now you've got Adidas, and these are your what, like your first two clients, basically.
Yes, first two clients.
That's crazy.
So
Oh,
we got a lucky break out there. And once you have Mumbai Indians and Adidas as your clients, you can go out and pitch to a lot of other people.
like
And
whoever else you want, right?
yeah,
That's got to
yeah,
open so many doors.
yeah.
Wow.
Because otherwise, if you go as a 24, 25-year-old
Mm-hmm.
pitching to probably 45, 50-year-old marketing guys at all these
Mm-hmm.
companies saying that I'll run marketing for you, they'll be like, go first get a marketing degree and come back.
Yeah, exactly.
so
That's
so
funny.
we got a lucky break there, and from there we are actually able to scale this up into running across 5 different cities in India. We had
Mm-hmm.
over 50 clients. We are running a profitable business, and we had global clients like Pepsi, Lufthansa, Discovery Channel, and a bunch of these other people. And that was kind of feeding the research and the pivoting activities that we are trying to do for Dream
Nice.
11 as well. So
Nice.
that actually worked out for us because that helped us get over the first big hurdle of running out of cash almost.
That's some pure resourcefulness, man.
So
Like,
it's just about adapting and figuring out ways to survive, right?
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's funny, like I'm a veteran, right? I'm a military veteran.
Right,
And one of the big things from my Marine Corps days is we always talk about, no matter what you're going through, you've got to improvise, adapt, and overcome. Like if you got your eyes on the prize and you are on your path or whatever it is,
right,
until there's absolutely no way of making something happen, figure it out, right?
right,
To be honest, like that's a pretty fucking lucky break you got. Like
right,
not everybody has that opportunity, but it's also like getting yourself out there, right?
right,
It's working hard towards your goal, but then also being in the right place at the right time. So I'm not going to discount it and say, oh, it's just lucky, like it's
right,
one of those
right,
things. Like I told you that I produced that event between Manchester United and Liverpool in Australia a couple years
right,
ago, right?
right.
I mean, part of that could be like, oh yeah, that was luck. Sure, I was in the right
Mhm.
place at the right time, right? But I also had my skill set and my experience, my education. I was looking to do something big and something
Right,
awesome and all that shit. And on top of all that, I happened to run into this guy, this friend of mine, who was looking for somebody to help out with that sort of thing.
right,
So yeah, it's like I just sit there and go, "Oh my god, it's crazy! Like it's such dumb luck that those were your first two clients." But it's not dumb luck. Like there's a lot of shit that goes into that sausage before you get that opportunity.
Yes, in fact, the first thing was the realization that what we are doing was not working out, and
Yeah.
we needed to think about something else, pivot.
Yep.
Being like, okay, let's try it out for another year. If it doesn't work, we'll shut it down.
Hmm.
But actually, having that perseverance to go through it, to be like, no, we are going to figure this out. Yes, our first attempt has failed, but maybe there's another model that can work out.
Hmm.
Fantasy sports is yet a great concept.
Absolutely.
So, and it's through the connect that we have built with these teams that again it helped us when we are there at the right place at the right time.
Hmm. So you're able to build out this digital marketing thing.
Right,
Mumbai Indians, Adidas, so on and so forth. Um,
right.
at what point were you guys? I mean, do you still have that digital marketing? Do you guys still do that, or have you?
No, no, we don't. So what happened is, in the meanwhile, obviously we are looking at ways to pivot,
Mhm.
and eventually we came up with the daily fantasy sports. Let's try daily fantasy sports for cash.
Mhm.
So we are not relying on monetization through ads, B2B monetization. We'll go B2C directly, and
Hmm.
we'll do a pay-to-play fantasy sports version where if people want to participate, they play, and they pay, and if they win cash prizes.
Hmm.
So that was the model that we came up with, and while we were pivoting to that, the entire digital servicing bit was feeding the growth. And then when once we pivoted to this model, we realized that between the two of us co-founders, it was very difficult to handle two businesses because there was no focus.
Right,
Right,
for sure.
right. The product was the passion. The services arm was getting us the money. So you'd always kind of be biased to the business that was making revenue, getting us the money, keeping the lights on. But in that, then we were just kind of ignoring a little bit the product side that we always wanted to build out. So then once we had a stable few 100,000 users on fantasy sports, and we saw the initial traction to be good. We are seeing that okay, people were getting used to this format, and we are getting better numbers. That's when we decided that let's go out and sell off our digital services business and focus on the product business, which was G11. And that's what we did. We went out, we sold the digital services business to another digital services agency, and we pumped back all the money that we got from that sale into Dream 11. And that's what then gave us some money to go advertise, get some more users on board. So we launched this version in end 2011, December 2011.
Mhm.
And by around 2013, 2014, we had started seeing good traction. But you know at the end of the day, if you're not able to market the product properly, you're not going to get as many users.
Right.
So then we needed money to start going gung ho and all out marketing, and that's when we decided, okay, we'll go out and now try to raise funds. So at the same time that my co-founder was in US at Columbia Business School.
Mhm.
So he started reaching out to a lot of VCs in India and US. So he started reaching out to a bunch of VCs in US. I think he spent more time in Silicon Valley and then New York. And we reached out to close to around 150 odd VCs, Ps, all any institution that could fund us.
Mhm.
And all 150 actually told us no. And that was quite a bummer. That okay, we've been trying to raise this money, we're not able to raise it. How will we get that growth capital?
Mhm.
And we are obviously yet burning money. So while the money that we got from the sale of the digital services agency was with us, but it would last only for a certain period of time. So we realized that okay, probably reaching out to VCs, Ps in US is probably not the best idea, and we started reaching out to people in India as well. That's when we got one after getting probably 150 no's. We got one yes from a VC firm in India,
Oh
and
yeah.
yeah, and that's when we got a Series A funding in end of 2014.
That's
Right.
crazy too, man. Like I've also gone out to raise money. I've
Right.
come close a couple of times.
Right.
But I've also had to pivot and retool and things like that. But I remember I was raising money for one project, for one venture, and I reached out to like 125 VCs or something like that. That was about my breaking point. That was like where I'm going, I don't know if this is going to work. I applaud you guys. It's a numbers game, right? It's like,
Mm,
one door closes, another one opens. You just keep hitting
one
it,
open.
keep hitting it.
Right. Right.
Persistence.
Yes, it is, and that's something that we've had to have ever since the day we started till today. That's, I think, an important trait in general. If you want to run a business, obviously, one of the things that we had to be very cognizant about when we started off the business, and that also took us a lot of time when we were pivoting, is to figure out that whether this kind of business model is in line with the laws of the country,
Right.
because it could be very easily construed as a betting kind of a business. And betting is not allowed in India, similar to how betting was not allowed in US till a few months ago. It's the same concept as it is in US, where you're allowed to stake money on a game of skill and win cash prizes, and that's not considered as betting.
It's considered a game of skill because
Yes.
you choose which players you want. And
So as good as the role of a selector, right?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Person who's selecting the team for a specific, say for the Yankees,
mm-hmm.
for example. In 2014 and so Jan 2015 is when we got our first round of funding, a Series A. At that time, we had around 300,000 users on the platform, and
Nice,
since then, we've had 5 rounds of funding, 4 rounds of funding, and one round of secondary transaction.
nice.
And today we stand at around 80 million users.
80 million?
Yes, 80
My
million.
God, dude.
So we've
That's
actually been,
crazy.
yeah, we've actually been able to use that capital that we raised very well to build out the entire user base.
Wow.
And it's been quite a journey trying to educate people about fantasy sports, because it's
Yeah,
not an easy concept for people who don't know fantasy sports to understand.
right.
And since we were the first ones in the market, we actually had to there were a few fantasy sports products before us, but they never gained as much traction. So basically, apart from the guys who had played those on those platforms, we had to educate everyone about this
Hmm.
fantasy sports as a concept. And so that's what's been quite a challenge. But now that we have such a large user base, we've kind of somehow overcome that challenge, because there'll be that one person in every group that will be playing fantasy sports, and he'll teach the concept to everyone else in the group.
Right. I was gonna say it would probably extend to like kind of what you and your buddies started with, anyways, where you just you've got that
Yeah,
tie that holds each other together, be
yeah,
competitive, watch sports, that sort of thing. I mean, it's basically that same concept. You're just like spreading it out to everybody else's groups of friends, right?
right.
Basically,
That's correct. Yeah.
unless they're playing head to head against like, do they play against random people or is it like how does that work?
Yeah, we have both. We have both.
Both.
It's
Mm-hmm.
we have head to head against people playing anywhere in the country,
Mm-hmm.
or you can play private contests with only people from your group.
Oh, okay. Right on. Right on. I'm just sitting here thinking, so two things. I'm like, first, fucking A. 80 million users is nothing to shy away from. Like that's you guys were able to go from 0 to 300,000 users without any venture capital money.
No,
Wow. And then you took that VC money as you already figured out your model, whatever's going to work for you.
right.
You got that traction, you got the VC money, and you just fucking so like because you launched in 2008 and it took
Yes,
you 6 years to get the first 300, is that right?
correct.
6 years to get 300,000 users. That's a battle, dude. Like I can't even
Yeah.
I would get frustrated. I'd be like, fuck this, I'm out. But it's 6 years to get
Yeah.
300,000 users. You guys are building this out. You're probably A/B testing and all that other shit.
Hmm.
You get 300,000 users, and then within the next 6 years,
Yet another 80 million. Yeah.
wow, that's crazy, dude. That's rock star status. And then that and but with that last, was it the fourth round that you got? Was a D
Yes.
round. That's
Yes,
that's
it's
what puts
D.
you up to the $1 billion valuation. Is that right?
No, that was actually the round after that, where it was a secondary
Oh, it's
transaction
like a
where
D
some of our
plus.
exiting. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
correct.
Hell yeah, dude. God, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So okay, so let me ask you this: now that you've got all this big VC money,
Yeah.
like when you were in grad school, I know you guys are working remotely, building this thing out.
Right.
But like,
Right.
what was the office like then, and what is it like now?
Okay. So when we started off, obviously we started from home. So it's
Yeah.
two of us working from home. And we didn't care about what hour of the day it was, just focusing on building the product, and making sure we had a great product out there. um, from there we actually moved into, very interestingly and very for a very short period of time, we moved into a massive office. It was a 10,000 square foot office which was lying empty, and we just took a cabin out there, and we weren't paying any rent for that because it was owned by someone we knew,
Oh,
and it
nice.
wasn't being used. So, but it was this massive office where it was like five of us working out of that office. So it was literally one cabin where we had all the lights on and we were working, and everything else was dark.
Nice.
And eventually when we moved in, so that was for a few months, and then when we actually moved into our first office, it was in the same building, but it was in the basement. So it was a basement office, no sunlight, no idea of whether it was day or night. Just kept working in the office. It was quite a interesting thing, a fun
It's
office
the
to have.
grind,
Yeah,
man. It's that
yeah,
grind. It's that
it's the
early
grind.
stage, man. I almost like it better where there's no windows, where you can't. I mean, at that stage of the game, where you just like, you just got to keep working
Keep
because
working. Yeah, yeah,
if you stop working, then nothing's gonna
yeah,
get
yeah.
done, right, or
Yeah.
whatever. And,
Yeah, I think there was a point where one of our guys actually wanted to quit because he had vitamin D deficiency by not having sunlight at all.
it's like I'm turning white,
but
man. That's
but
funny.
yeah, it was a fun part of the journey, right? Having
Yeah.
a basement office has its own challenges because when it rains and it starts getting flooded, we have to make sure that the water doesn't come into the office, and
Hmm.
a bunch of challenges. But it was fun. We made sure that the workplace from day one was always fun.
Hmm.
Uh, we had a very small recreation room where we actually had a smallish cricket pitch, and we used to play cricket out there in
Oh,
our
nice.
free time. And from there we moved into another office not too far away from there, which then and this is after we got funded. Just after we got funded, we moved into office very close by, but we went straight from the basement to a 19th floor office.
Nice.
Uh, and with beautiful view of the sea and of the city.
Hmm.
um, and there was a 10,000 square foot office, could fit around 150 odd people.
Nice.
And so we grew out there. Eventually we grew out of that space as well, and very recently, around 6 to 8 months ago, we moved into where our current space is, which is also in the same area. And now we have a 30,000 square foot office which fits around 300 odd people. 350, 330 we can fit, yeah. And now, apart from Dream 11, we've actually started building out other products as well, which are in the sports ecosystem itself. So one of our other products, FanCode, is a multi-sports aggregator platform where you get fantasy news, content, research for all sports that we feature. Apart from some, obviously the scores. Articles and live matches for some tournaments as well.
Nice.
What we realized is, after we got that user base, is people wanted to actually do a lot of research before they created a team. Sometimes the content or stats were not easily available. So, some other people saw this as an opportunity, and they started creating content around fantasy sports, and they started packaging and selling it to our users.
Hmm.
So if you today go to the Google Play Store, for example, and you search for Dream 11, you'll see, I think, 250 apps which give you Dream 11 tips,
Hmm.
content, research.
Wow.
So it spawned that entire different industry. And what we realize is that we've created almost what is equivalent to the equity market for sports.
Hmm.
And when there's an equity market, you need to have research as well. So you need to have a Bloomberg, right?
Yeah,
Which
absolutely.
will you with the research, and
Hmm.
that's what our users started doing. They started creating the research, and we are like, okay, this is a good opportunity. While we have a lot of people who can create content, they have to also then have an app. They have to maintain some kind of platform, and there's tech requirement. Instead of that, what if we get all these guys on board our platform itself? So on FanCode, we've created that platform, and then we get these people as aggregators onto that platform.
Interesting, dude. That's smart, man. Hell
Right.
yeah, fucking just own it. Own the market. I love it.
Yes.
Nice. You said you're doing like streaming of the games as well. Is that strictly related to the cricket, or is it do you have agreements
No,
with
we do different sports. So, for example, right now when there's no sports going on, we've actually been able to figure out a couple of countries where sports is yet going on.
Hmm.
So there's a football league in Nicaragua,
Really?
and yes,
They're
and the
playing right now.
football they're playing right now, and there's
Wow.
a football league in Belarus as well.
That's crazy. And they're playing too.
They're playing too,
I just so there's like two leagues in the world that are playing right now.
and I think they're playing something in Tajikistan as well, basketball as well as football, and then in Taiwan they're playing basketball.
Really? Well,
Yeah,
Taiwan's pretty much. I mean, I think they've fought the thing off pretty well. I think
yes, yeah,
so that's understandable. I don't know where Nicaragua, Tajikistan, and Belarus are with this whole pandemic, but I wonder if they've got like
right.
I wonder if they got fans in the stadiums or anything like that.
No, it's behind closed doors.
Is it still, man? That's
Yeah,
weird. Like I would
yeah,
if I were the athlete, I'd be like, what the hell, like
yeah.
freaking out a little bit, but. I'm just trying to understand. So you mentioned that sports are shut down in India too. Premier League's
Right,
canceled.
right,
Lose everything, or not to completely stop all operations.
right.
You look to see who else is playing elsewhere, and so you've got people playing, setting up their teams and stuff like that through Dream 11, focused on Nicaragua and Belarus.
Yes,
That's crazy. That's like,
yeah,
dude. I sit there and I think like that's got to be like you're talking about equity markets, right? Like that's got to be
right,
like those like ADR, like almost like penny
right,
stocks or something, where like this, and not because they're cheap, or untalented,
mm,
because I'm sure they're very skilled, right?
right.
But they're not very covered. There's not a lot of coverage in those leagues.
There wasn't till recently. Now everyone wants to cover it because that's the only sports going on in the
Yeah.
world. But there's more than enough stats available from all the historic seasons. So
Hmm.
while they aren't as popular, there's enough stats for all the players for anyone to do research on the stats and figure out who's a good player, who's not,
Hmm.
who's been playing in the team. Every game in game out versus someone who's just you know temporary substitute kind of a player. So these leagues have been running for a while, and there's enough stats. So what people do, see, at the end of the day, it's all about stats and kind of understanding the expected potential points that a
Hmm.
player can get, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And that's why we actually stream these matches live on our platform, so people can actually watch these matches and understand how the players play.
Nice. So who are your favorite teams in the Nicaragua and Belarusian leagues?
So you'll be surprised. I don't know how much. Do you know much about football at all?
A little bit, yeah, a little bit. Not, I mean,
Yeah,
I'm not a crazy huge fan, but I don't. I mean, I don't like it to the Nicaragua and Belarus league levels. Like it's,
yeah,
I'm not that big of a fan, but I like it. I like Premier League, Bundesliga. Yeah.
yeah. So by the way, Bundesliga is the players have started practicing again
Oh,
in
really?
Germany. Yeah, and they're
Sweet.
looking to start the league back in May if it's possible.
That'd
So
be
at least
crazy, dude.
for us, it's a sliver of good news.
Yeah, no, it's
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, for you and for every
yeah.
sports fan in the world, man, like people are
Right,
itching
right.
for anything right now, you
Anything.
know?
Yes, of course.
Hmm. That'd be
But
crazy.
obviously, with the Indian Premier League being cancelled, it's
Hmm.
a big blow for our business because that's the 2 months where we get the maximum growth
Yeah,
in the business.
right.
And we are hoping that it'll be held later in the year if they can find a window to host this tournament.
I'd be willing to bet if this thing can subside soon enough that like I'm sure they'll be able to reschedule it and make it happen. I mean, cricket's like the sport of India, right? Like is
Yes.
there a bigger sport?
In India, cricket is by far the biggest.
By far, right? Yeah, and that's where that obviously that's where your growth's going to be. Right
Right.
on, man. So what does the future hold? What's going on? I mean, other than waiting for this whole thing to subside and really dig into business, what do you where do you guys see things going over the next couple of years?
So now that we've actually grown Dream 11 to a decent size of user base, and we kind of have that B2C monetization model running. Now we are looking to grow much more in the sports ecosystem. So what we've done, I spoke about FanCode with the multi-sports aggregation platform.
Yep.
And that's something that we are looking at building on. Apart from that, we've actually started a sports incubator as well, where
Really?
where we evaluate ideas related to sports, and any ideas that we find interesting, we would invest in those ideas.
Hell yeah, dude. Hell yeah, man. Giving back. Right on. I love it, dude. I love it. I think it's a pretty good spot to stop, dude. To be honest with you, I think we've had a pretty good interview. I think we've covered a lot of really awesome stuff. I've had a good time. I hope you've had a good time.
Yes.
It's taken a while to make it happen, but I'm glad we finally were able to sit down.
I know.
And I tell you what, next time we do this, Bhavit, we're doing this in your stadium. I will be there. Once the thing is all said and done, once we can travel again, I'm coming back to India. Sure. I want to do a tour of your stadium. It's gonna be a good time.
Yes, we actually call our office the stadium.
Yeah, I saw an article. That's why I was asking about your office earlier. It's called the stadium, right? Is it like designed like a stadium or something like?
No, we just like using sports jargon.
Oh, right on.
But yes, when you walk into our office, you would feel like you would get a little bit of a stadium feel because we've put AstroTurf instead of carpet on our floors.
Oh, nice.
And you see different sport related stuff all around the office. A lot of all of our meeting rooms are named after sports teams or sports leagues. Some of the sports stadiums as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
Dude, that's great, man. That's good for the culture building stuff, right? I mean, you got the people that are there for the love of sports, love of the game, and they're surrounded by it while they're working. Fucking A, dude.
Complete open office. No cabins. We just have meetings on the periphery, so you can actually look through and through.
Nice. That's good shit, man. Well, dude, like I said, once this thing is all over, once this thing's said and done, I'm heading your way, man. I'm coming back. I'm due for another trip.
Anytime.
Great chatting with Bhavit. Bhavit Sheth, everybody.
Thank you, Brian.
You've been listening to Half the City with Brian Shinborn, presented by 8B Media. Be sure to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your friends, and leave a solid 5-star review to ensure these stories get spread far and wide. For more information, as well as to listen to other shows, including Relentless, a survivor's search for passion, purpose, and inner peace, and Beyond Relentless, be sure to check out 8bmedia.com. Thank you for listening.